Hello, everyone, and welcome to our CodeX group meeting on February 22nd, 2024. We have a great session today with Jack Zimmerman and Brad Neal, the co-founders of LexPlug, which is a new AI-enriched study tool for law students. So we're excited to learn about LexPlug. Quick announcement from our side. Actually, because we only have one presentation today, we'll be ending at 2 o'clock today. Yeah, hope you're all doing well. If you have any updates for the group, please use the chat function. And we are in CodeX Future Law preparation mode. April 11th will be the day of our 2024 Future Law Conference, which is, of course, our largest event every year. And so we will very soon release the agenda, but I can already promise you that it will be an exciting and very educational program. And so we would love to all see you there on April 11th. But that's just, kind of little announcement and little promotion here. But that's all I'll say about that. And I don't want to take any more time away from Jack and Brad. So who's going to take it over from here? Jack, Brad?
Yeah. Hey everybody, I figured maybe I'll introduce myself, and then Jack, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we can jump into a demonstration and then Q&A, if that sounds good for everybody.
Sounds great.
So I am Brad. I am a third-year law student at George Washington University Law School. I am in Washington, D.C. Right now. And before I came to law school, I worked as a software engineer. I didn't study coding in college. I was a philosophy major. And then after I graduated from undergrad, I did what's called a coding boot camp. So that was a 3-month, 90-hour-a-week, very, very intense program. I was probably in a little bit in over my head, to be honest with you. And I made it through, and I got a job as a software engineer. And then I worked for a couple years doing that on a data team at a healthcare company. And then I decided to come to law school, and here I am in my third year.
Great, and I am the other member behind LexPlug. My name is Jack Zimmerman. I am located zooming in from Connecticut. I go to Pace Law School, which is in Westchester, New York. And like Brad, I'm a 3L and had a bit of a career before this too. I was in the restaurant space for a number of years, and Brad and I actually go back to undergrad. So we've been on parallel paths, both going to, starting law school at the same time, and have been AI enthusiasts. And I don't have nearly the technical background that Brad has, but we've always talked about different ideas, and we really kind of came together around this idea this fall and have had a lot of fun kind of getting it going and have been learning a ton in the process. So thanks for having us today. We're excited to present for you guys.
Awesome. So without any objections, I will present my screen. Can everybody see the Google page?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we will start at lexplug.com. So I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Quimby. They are a case brief site that most law students, including myself, use. And what they do is they provide summaries of cases. So it can be, if you didn't get a chance to read, we hate to admit it, but it's true, it does happen. Or to reinforce, maybe you read a few days ago and you want to reinforce, you can use Quimby. And I've been a user of Quimby for 2 years. And in the fall, I was in a situation where Quimby didn't supply everything that I needed, and I was playing around. I've been building tech law tools since my 2L year. My 1L year, I focused on law school, and then once I felt like I understood what was going on there, I started to code again, which is great. And not doing it professionally has been so much fun. So I've started to build a couple legal tools. Anyway, LexPlug. So one of the things I was playing around with a lot was the GPT API, starting around Christmas break last year. And this fall I was in class and I had read the Quimby, but the professor was asking questions that just weren't in there. So what I did is I went and I found a PDF of the case and I took the entire text of the case and I put it into the Playground developer API window and I started asking it questions. And the teacher was asking, I think her question was, so she was like, so there was a study in the case. Now, what was the control group in the study? And I was like, the Quimby didn't even mention the study. So I was like, oh gosh, I hope she doesn't call on me. And so I was asking it and it spat back. It said, oh, the control group was kitty litter made from baking soda. Okay, great. So anyway, so I realized that there could be something there. So we set out to build LexPlug. Now, what you can do is you can search for a case. And I like to start with Pearson v. Post. This is a classic property law case. I'm sure you all know. A guy was chasing a fox for a long period of time. He chased it onto somebody else's property. The other person who owned the property shot the fox. The question was, who owns it? The guy who chased it and sweat and toiled, or the person who captured it and killed it? And what Pearson v. Post gives us, it says property in wild animals, furae naturae, Latin, is acquired by occupancy, which requires actual possession, not merely pursuit or wounding. Great. That's good. And this is similar to what Quimby provides. But I'm a Redditor. I don't know if this crowd is interested in Reddit or uses Reddit, but on Reddit, there's a slang. It's called ELI5. It means explain like I'm 5, but it's not literal. It just means simplify that. What does that mean? So we created this explain like I'm 5 button, and it says to own a wild animal, you need to actually catch it, not just chase it. And so that's, users love that. I mean, I created it because I just wanted it. A lot of times the jargon is great, and it's important to know, but sometimes, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So that's the point of the ELI5 button. And then the other feature that we have over here is called the Gunnerbot. So what you can do with the Gunnerbot, and you guys might have heard the term retrieval augmented generation, and that's basically the engine behind this, with a little bit of salt and pepper, secret sauce here and there. But basically what you can do is you can ask a question, and this is powered by GPT-4, but it's basically reinforced such that, well, one of the big problems with GPT-4, and I'm sure that I don't have to tell anyone in the audience this, is that it can hallucinate. And it's a really big problem. When is it making things up? And so what retrieval augmented generation, and specifically our implementation of it, what we do is when a user asks a question, so for example, who is the president? I'll say was, so it doesn't get confused. Who is the president? And basically the universe that this instance is basing off of is the text of the case. So behind the scenes, basically we say, here's the text of the case, here's a question, only answer the question based on the text of the case. And GPT is good at that. The other thing that's really important is that if it's not in there, we need to make sure it says so. So this case famously is about John Adams was appointing a judge like at midnight on his last night of being president. So why did he take so long to deliver the appointment? Now, this isn't in the case. This isn't written in the opinion. They don't say why he was under those circumstances, just that he was. And so this is like a trick question that I like to throw at the Gunnerbot just to make sure that it's right. The case doesn't specify why there was a delay in delivering Marbury's commission. Great. That's really important to us. We would rather it say, I don't know, when it doesn't know. As I said, hallucinations are a big problem. So those were our two main features. And one thing that we did when we started was the question was, which cases do we support? How do we know which cases law students are going to need? So what I did for the prototype was I went and I Googled syllabus, GW law syllabus, and con law syllabus, PDF. And I found every con law syllabus that I could find from all over the country. Okay, maybe I had 30 con law syllabuses with 50 cases each. Okay, then I did the same thing for torts and property and all the cases. And then what I did is I ran those syllabi through actually GPT again. And I said, hey, GPT, I'm going to give you a bunch of text. I want you to spit back to me a list of case names and reporter numbers. And it did. I mean, of course, you have to go back and forth to get it to perform correctly, but it did. So now I had a list of case names and reporter numbers, and then that was a good basis where I could start going out and fetching the actual text. But so we had 5,000 cases, but we learned that it wasn't enough. It was really hard to predict what cases students will need. And so what we ended up coming up with, we launched the site about 5 weeks ago, and we added this feature about 2 weeks ago. I kind of worked around the clock to get this up, but basically it's the ability to add cases. We call it on the fly. So I'm just going to type some gibberish here into the search bar, and we have this thing. It says new feature. So I'm a fan of The Office. I have Michael Scott coming in his PT Cruiser to save the day. And what you can do is you can type in a case name and a reporter number and a year. Now, Roland, I'm going to ask you a question if you wouldn't mind participating and help me out just a little bit.
Sure.
Could I ask you to pick a number from 1 to 10?
7.
7. Okay. All right. So what I'm doing now is I'm searching Court Listener for the word 7. And if you guys, I assume people here might be familiar with Court Listener, but it's the free law project. It's a 501c3 run by Mike Listener, who's a very smart and interesting guy. Anyway, so I typed in 7, and here we have Conley v. Gibson. Okay, so let's open it up. It looks like a fine case. First, let's make sure that it's not in our system. Statistically, it's unlike, oh, it is. Well, isn't that nice? Okay, let's find one that isn't. Hooper v. California. Okay, once again, it's a case. It looks fine. Okay, not in there. Great. So what we're going to do, I'll get rid of Conley v. Gibson, and we're going to take the case name and the reporter and the year, which I think it was old, 1895. Yep. And we're going to hit submit, and it's searching, and it just flashed searching very briefly. It was found pretty quickly. So now there's a new brief being generated. So what this is doing is using a variety of APIs to go out and find the full text of the case and whatever other information that might be helpful for generating the brief, and putting that all together, and then sending it over to GPT-4 for brief generation. So brief generation is a multi-prompt process. Our first prompt took us a very long time to come up with. It took us about a month. And the way that we did it was we first we put in a case, and we said, we tried something, pull out the facts and create a brief. And we started grading the briefs. So we would grade them on a scale of 1 to 10, and we said, if we can't get this thing to output 9s and 10s consistently, we'll scrap it. It's not worth doing. So we iterated and iterated and iterated, and we came up with our initial prompt. Like I said, it's a multi-prompt process, but our initial prompt is close to 3 pages in length. So that is what's happening right now. It's generating the brief, and then the explain it like I'm 5 brief. And then it's passing it over to what we call Gunnerbot ingestion. So that process is taking the full text of the case and chunking it into decent sized chunks, and then converting each of those chunks into basically it's I like to think of it as an XY coordinate. It's more complicated than that, but that's the simplified version that I think of it. And then that's how we do the retrieval augmented generation process. So we'll see what this does. I was hoping that it would have timed up perfectly, but sometimes it takes a little longer than other times. Okay, here we go. So success, the briefs and the Gunnerbot are good to go, hot off the press, and I can go to the brief. Remember, we're looking for Hooper v. California. Ta-da! And we've got an explain it like I'm 5 brief, and we have the Gunnerbot. And so, yeah, that is basically the site. It's fairly simple, which is how I like it. It's something that I can conceptualize and think about, and I know that it provides value to me, and hopefully it provides value to others. But that's it for the demo, and I'm happy to open it up for questions.
That's awesome. Wow, very impressive. What's the stat? Has this been released already, and are law students using it? And if so, what are you learning from your initial users?
That's a great question. I'm really happy that you asked that. So yes, we released it about 4 weeks ago, and law students are using it. We haven't really done a whole lot of advertising. We don't have a very big budget. We also have some lawyers using it, which I can touch on in a second. But what the biggest thing that we've learned is the way that students are using the Gunnerbot, which is so fun because we have a log where we can see the questions and answers just for quality control to make sure that nothing's going haywire. And we weren't really sure how people were going to use it. I mean, some people suggested that maybe you could use it in class during a cold call. I have not been brave enough to do that, although maybe I should. Maybe I should film it for social media or something. But I don't know if anyone would be brave enough, and I don't know if it would be fast enough. But what we have been able to tell from the questions that students ask is that they're asking things, not that the teacher is asking them in real time, but I think it's things that they're afraid to raise their hand and ask. So for example, we had, and these are just queries from the past week that I can think of off the top of my head. What is consideration? What does fiduciary mean? Things like that. So what I take away from that is the fact that students, they don't want to, a law school classroom can be an intimidating environment, at least for me. And sometimes when you're lost, you don't want to raise your hand and ask a question that people would perceive as stupid. And so people have been using the Gunnerbot for that. And that to me is awesome. That's exactly what we want. We want people to be able to maximize their time in law school, whether that's through reading cases or in class. And so if people are asking the Gunnerbot these types of questions, what is specific performance? Awesome. Because the alternative is being lost. And I can speak from experience. There are some times in law school when you're sitting there lost, and this is hopefully a solution to that. That's what we've learned from the Gunnerbot questions that have come in so far. And that's something we're really, really excited about.
Okay, cool. So Brad, so initially you said a database of like 5,000 cases that were your sort of corpus. But now I think you showed that you can actually retrieve cases from the court listener and all cases that are accessible
Yes. Now,
online.
so Court Listener has over 8 million cases, which makes us the largest collection of our kind, we believe. Now there's a 90-second, maybe 2-minute lag to generate a new case, but once a case has been generated, it's in our system forever. So someone else who came in and searched for this case, they wouldn't have to generate it. And yeah, now not every case is on Court Listener, and that's like on our horizon. For example, there are cases from England, the King's Bench and the Queen's Bench that are sometimes talked about in law school. We've gone through and added a couple of them by hand, some of the really most famous ones, but that's something we'd like to add. Also, administrative, ALJs, administrative decisions. Those aren't always on Court Listener, but for the most part, I mean, we are thrilled with Court Listener. And I met with Mike last night, the guy who started and runs Court Listener, and I don't know. I think his job or his goal was to democratize the law and make it open. And I mean, we just love that because we are now building on top of it. And, he thought what we were doing is cool. I mean, I think this is the type of stuff that he was hoping that people would build innovations on top of this open law, as it should be, Anyway, I could ramble all day
Yeah.
about how we want to democratize the law and explaining it simply and, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So Jeremy's asking, do you create the entire brief with that single 3-page prompt, or do you run a sequence of Q&A prompts where later prompts take the output of previous prompts as their input to refine the final brief?
Thank you for your question, Jeremy. It's the latter. It's a multi-prompt process. And that was basically what took us a month, was to work out all of the kinks with that. And that was really where most of our elbow grease went in on this I mean, there's been a lot of elbow grease going into this project, but that's really the heart and soul. And so, yes, that was basically what we spent a lot of iterations developing. And it's a multi-prompt process.
All right. Peter is asking, isn't there a risk of students getting lazy and not reading the actual case and thus missing something important?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, there is. There is. I mean, I'd be lying if I said something else. There is with Quimby, and there is even at the George Washington University Library, we have I can't remember what they're called, Blackman's Guides or something like that, that are study briefs. Yes, there is that's a risk. But our thinking is that things are changing. Maybe when search engines came out, students didn't learn how to look up things in the library with the Dewey Decimal System. Do I think that people need to read cases? Yes. Do I read cases? Yes. I want to get the most I can out of my education. Could someone use this to skimp on their reading? Yes, they could.
I would jump in too and just say, the other thing we talk about is, we haven't really heard that it's being used as a replacement like that. And what we focus on is if we can create something that really emphasizes the understanding, then, that'll be a valuable tool.
Yeah.
And I think additionally, we believe that AI is not going to replace lawyers, but lawyers who know how to use AI will. And this is, can also be looked at as kind of a sandbox with guardrails for students to learn how to use AI, learn how to interact with their case via AI. That's, like Brad said, context reinforced, and provides additional, hopefully, supplementary, in addition to the knowledge directly from the cases.
Yeah. Sally is saying, you guarantee 100% hallucination-free responses. How have you customized it for the legal domain? Or are you using OpenAI's API without any modifications?
So we are using OpenAI's API. We haven't fine-tuned it, if that's what you're asking. What we have done is we've put a series of prompts and guardrails. I don't know if we can guarantee 100% guarantee no hallucination. If we have that, I should probably see about changing that, because I just don't know if that's possible when you're working with a language model. But what we can do is make it as unlikely as we possibly can, and that's what we've done. And we've done that through a series of so even with the Gunnerbot, it's not just one shot. It's multiple prompts, different checks to get that accuracy. But I don't think it's ever possible with a language model. I'm probably wrong, but that I know of to guarantee 100% ever. But as I said, we get as close as we possibly can, and we're comfortable. Obviously, we always want to improve. Maybe I should make that social media video where I do a cold call, just to like that guy who has bulletproof windows and he has someone shoot a gun at him while he's standing behind it. Something like that.
Scary classroom setting. So I think overall, I mean, folks are like, pretty impressed, and, love it, love all the joy baked into the platform, the GIFs and the colors. And then I think, Miriam was saying that she also I guess most of us rarely read the entire case. And then Peter is also asking whether any professors are already using your system in class as part of the instruction.
I don't know for sure whether any professors have used it in class as part of the instruction. I do know for sure that I have spent hours cumulatively in my professors' offices showing it to them and testing it with them and having fun with it. And I do know that we've had some professors from other schools reach out to me, or us in general, and ask about the platform, and I've given some of them tours. I love to do behind the scenes tours, as I call them. So please, anyone in the audience, if you would like to meet with me on Zoom, it's my favorite thing to do. We can take 15 minutes. I'll show you the code base. We can get into some of that. I'm brad@lexplug.com, and I love to do it. And when users sign up, I offer that to them. And so I have met with a variety of professors around the country to talk about the platform. I'm not sure if any of them have used it in class. I don't know about that.
Yeah. So Alice is asking whether it's already available to all students and what's the cost?
Great question, Alice. Thank you so much. So yes, it is available to all students, and we're running it right now for $9 a month, excuse me, or $89 a year. And this is hopefully priced to spread. We want to gain adoption and become entrenched. Our competitor is between $20 and $30, and they don't have the Gunnerbot or the Explain It Like I'm Five or the ability to add cases. So we think we offer a really good value. As I mentioned earlier, we do have some lawyers who are kind of snuck their way onto the platform, and we don't discourage it, but we're not ready to go there yet. And the reason is because we think we would probably have to develop a different pricing model when it comes to lawyers, because when a law student generates a case, that costs us some money, which we're happy to do. And the assumption there is that that cost of a new case will be amortized among all the students that come behind them that want to look up that same case. A lawyer is a bit different because they're going to be looking up a case that's more obscure and might not be looked at again. And so we think we would probably want to price it differently for lawyers. So this is our law student pricing. Like I said, we have a couple lawyers who have snuck in, and that's totally fine. I use the term sneak in loosely, but we're just not intentionally trying to grow among lawyers quite yet, but we do see that in the future.
Yeah.
And just to jump in on the market, so like Brad said, we launched 4 weeks ago and mostly just been using word of mouth. We think probably around 15 schools have students using the platform. We just passed over 100 paying customers, and our vision for it, I think right now we're testing different user acquisition strategies out. So a variety of kind of digital ways to get in front of law students and, demonstrate the value. And, in addition to that, we're also having meetings with deans and administrators to discuss selling directly into schools.
All right. So yeah, Priyanka is making a good point. She's saying, whether, adding citations from the original text may help address the issue of potential hallucination.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Citations would be good, and that's kind of on our roadmap. Citations would be good for a variety of reasons, but yes, I think it probably would decrease hallucinations because basically, just by asking it to check itself in that way, I think it's less likely to go off the rails.
Good. All right. And then Marisa is saying this is very, very cool. And what's the ultimate vision for the product? How do you see it scale?
Great question. I don't know. I don't have a concrete answer for you. We started by building what we wanted, and that's as law students. But ultimately, like I said, we've gotten some really good feedback from lawyers, and we know that obviously Lexis just launched Lexis Plus AI, and that has 3 features. It's got research, generation, and summarization. And go see for yourself. Try LexPlug and try that. And obviously that's aimed at lawyers. So we are very happy with our product, and we think there's a lot of different avenues. One of the things I've thought of is we could put statute on there. You could have a Gunnerbot conversation with statute. So we'll see. There's so many different. It's such a fertile space, and that's one of the things that we're most excited about. So we're really excited to see how it evolves.
Can you just give a little bit more? I understand that that's your secret sauce, but can you help us understand a little bit more that your rack process and how you you said it's like a month of work that went into that. What can you share that's not part of your secret sauce?
Sure. So the month that I referred to, it took us a long time to do so there are really 2 pieces here. There is the brief generation, and that is what took us a month of grading the briefs and iterating on the prompt. That's a multi-step prompt process. And then on the other side, you've got the Gunnerbot. So that is the chatbot that happens in real time. And that's where the retrieval augmented generation takes place. So in terms of the retrieval augmented generation, I can just, I can explain it the way I understand it. I'm sure people in the audience probably understand it better than I do, so forgive me in advance. But basically what it does is we take the full text of the opinion and we cut it into chunks. And those chunks are overlapping. So the first chunk might be sentences 1, 2, and 3. and the second chunk would be sentences 2, 3, and 4, and so on. So you've got these overlapping chunks, and what you do is you take each chunk, which is essentially a string of characters, and you run it through this thing called an embedding engine. And an embedding engine is a black box that comes from OpenAI. I don't know how it works, but it's a miracle, because what it does is it takes in strings and it outputs an XY value. And that XY value is related to the meaning of the string. So if I put in, I like ice cream, it might give me back 5,7. And if I say, I like frozen treats, it might give me back, 5.1, 7.2. So those XY points are close to each other. And that's based on the meaning, as opposed to the words. And so then what we do is we calculate a XY coordinate for each of the chunks. And then when the question comes in, we fluff it up a little bit. And then we get an XY coordinate for the question. And then we match which XY coordinate chunks are most closely related to the XY coordinate of the question. Remember, the XY coordinates are based on the meaning. And we take the top, n number of them. And those are what we use to generate the answer.
Makes sense. Yeah. How did you pick? Peter's asking, how did you pick the name Gunnerbot?
So a gunner is kind of a derogatory term in law school. A gunner is an overachiever, someone who is raising his or her hand far too often, to the dismay of his or her classmates. So we just thought it's kind of like a fun way to call it a know-it-all, essentially.
Yeah, I think for me it would have to create the lurker bot.
The lurker bot, what's that?
the person that's the opposite of the gunner, I thought. But
oh, right, yeah, the back of the class guy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, well, this has been great. It's very cool, very impressive, and I think sort of the feedback from the group kind of recognizes that, and really we really appreciate you sharing with the CodeX group here, and I'm sure some of the people in the group will be using LexPlug, and it's a really awesome technology, and thanks also for sharing the story behind it. And it's always great to build something that solves a problem for yourself, and then kind of get it out into the world.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us. And please, I just want to reiterate to everyone in the audience, please reach out. It's brad@lexplug.com. And I just love to talk to people on Zoom and talk about the code and talk about the project. And I could go on for another hour. So please reach out.
Great. Thank you, Brad and Jack. Did you want to add something, Jack?
Yeah, just that. Please do try the product out. If you go on and just sign up with your email, you get a number of cases that you can check out and use for free before adding credit card or actually signing up for it. So definitely try it out and let us know what you think. We're always hungry for feedback, and like Brad said, definitely reach out, and thanks for having us.
It was great to have you. Yeah, come to Future Law so we meet you in person.
Great, that'd be awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Good to see you all. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.